true crime story.
Angela Hammond stopped at a Payphone in Clinton, Missouri, and you just talked about it. She was on the phone with her fiance when she told him that a strange man was circling the parking lot in a truck. It was the last time anyone heard from Hammond, who police tonight fear may have been murdered.
He was just a fun-loving girl that loved to be around people.
But on the night of April 4th, 1991, in Clinton, Missouri, someone kidnapped Hammond from this phone booth. In fact, she was on the phone with her fiancé, Rob Schaefer, saying a suspicious truck was circling the parking lot.
A little time later, Rob hears Angela scream on the telephone.
Hammond's been missing ever since and feared dead.
30 years ago, a young woman named Angela Hammond was snatched from a payphone in Clinton, Missouri. She was never seen again, and her abduction still remains a mystery.
Everyone covered this case, even Unsolved Mysteries.
Hey there, and welcome to episode 12 of Tell Me a True Crime Story. I'm your host, Holly. Thank you guys so much for being here. And I make it a point to say that every time that I come on here because I really do mean it. I thank you so much for spending some of your day with me and letting me tell you these stories. And I just appreciate you listening. And I hope that you and your family are happy, healthy, and safe and enjoying the holiday season. In episode 11, Nightmare in Knoxville, I brought you the terrifying case of Shannon Christian and Chris Newsom. And if you listened, I know that that story completely broke your heart and greatly, greatly angered you at the same time. So today I have yet another case that has stuck with me through the years since I first heard it a long, long time ago. And just to let you know, let me throw this in there real quick. I had the flu last week and I was really sick. I was actually in bed for a few days. So I'm thankful to be feeling better now, but my voice is still different, weird, and I have a cough. So please forgive me if I sound bad. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast and tell your friends and family about it. And follow the podcast on social media. Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok are at Tell Me a True Crime Story. And Twitter is at Tell Me a TCS Pod. Also, please check out my other podcast. It's called All Available Units Respond. And so far, there are 4 episodes on there. Thank you again so much for being here. Of course, big, big hugs to all of you. Now, let me tell you a true crime story. So, our story today takes us to Clinton, Missouri in April of 1991. The population of Clinton in 1991 was about 8,700 people. Clinton, Missouri is located in Henry County in west central Missouri. It's a little more than an hour southeast of Kansas City, and the downtown square in Clinton is approximately 10 blocks, and it features 85 buildings. It's on the Registered National Historic District, and it's the biggest town square in the state of Missouri and is actually one of the few that is economically successful. I thought that was pretty interesting. And so I picture this, really nice, cute, quaint downtown square, and I'm sure it's adorable and has lots of cool little shops that you can go in and out of and look. So, yeah. The Henry County Courthouse was built in 1893 and still stands today. Clinton is a rural farming community, and they have an annual festival there that's popular, and it's called Old Glory Days, and that takes place every summer. Angela Marie Hammond, who went by Angie, was 20 years old and worked at a bank. She also attended classes at Central Missouri State University in Warrensburg, Missouri, which is about 30 minutes away from Clinton. Angie was 4 months pregnant at the time our story takes place, and was engaged to be married to a young man named Rob Schaefer. On Thursday, April 4th, 1991, Angie and Rob had attended a barbecue together. After the barbecue, around 10 p.m., Angie dropped Rob off at his mom's house and said she'd call him later. Rob had to go to his mom's house and watch his little brother while his mom was at work, and Angie was going to hang out with her best friend named Kyla. Rob and Angie planned to meet back up with each other when Rob's mom got home. As promised, Angie called Rob around 11:15 p.m. She called him from the payphone booths near the Food Barn grocery store in the center of town. She was on the southeast corner of the intersection of South 2nd Street and East Jefferson Street. This was only 7 blocks from Rob's mom's house. Angie told Rob that she was too tired to meet up with him, and instead she was going to go to their trailer home that they shared together and take a bath. According to Rob, while he was on the phone with Angie, she said that a truck circled around the block a few times. She told Rob that it was an older green Ford pickup. The truck then parked by the phone booth. Angie told Rob the driver of the truck was a quote-unquote filthy, bearded man. The man got out of his truck, used the phone next to her, then got back into his truck. He started looking at something with a flashlight, or maybe he was just pretending to be looking at something or looking for something. Angie relayed what the man was doing to Rob. Rob told Angie to ask the man if he needed to use the phone. Rob thought that maybe the other phone was broken. The man said no, he'd try again in a minute. Neither Angie nor Rob thought too much else about it as they started to talk about other things. But then Rob heard Angie scream. He heard a man say, quote, "I didn't need to use the phone anyway," end quote. Rob dropped the phone, not even putting it back on the hook, and raced out the door and into his car. He wanted to get to the payphone immediately and see what was going on. As Rob sped toward the payphone, a Ford F-150 pickup truck sped past him going in the opposite direction. He heard Angie scream his name out the window, "Robbie!" Rob quickly turned around right there in the street and chased the truck through downtown Clinton, but he didn't realize that he'd badly damaged his transmission when he threw his car into reverse to chase after the truck. His car started dying. He chased the truck for 1 to 2 miles. The truck turned off to the right, and Rob did too, but his car gave out in the middle of the road. Rob watched helplessly as the truck's taillights faded further and further away into the night with Angie inside. Rob started walking back to town, but was soon picked up by a passing motorist. He asked them to take him to the police station where he reported the events that had just transpired. It was now a little after midnight. Rob described the kidnapper's truck to the police. It was a late 1960s or early 1970s two-tone green Ford F-150 pickup truck. He told them that it had a mural of a fish jumping out of the water completely covering its rear window. He also said that the truck possibly had a white top and possibly had damage to its left front fender. Rob told police that Angela had described the man as having a full beard and mustache and wearing glasses. He was wearing coveralls or overalls and a dark-colored baseball cap. Police made a composite sketch of him. And this kind of confused me because the composite sketch, you can look it up online. The man depicted in the police sketch appears to be clean-shaven with no beard or mustache. So that's weird. Anyway, Rob was investigated as a possible suspect in the disappearance of Angie, but investigators found Rob's car broke down and undrivable right where he said it would be. Also, witnesses came forward and told police they saw the same truck that Rob had described. Rob was questioned by police, given a polygraph test, which he passed, and was cleared as a suspect. Angie's car was found in the parking lot where she was abducted. with her purse still inside. Officials and volunteers made up of friends, family, and townspeople searched for Angie by land and air, but to no avail. They looked in water wells, creek beds, abandoned buildings, barns, fields, the woods, and on desolate country roads with no luck. Missing persons posters were passed out all over town and taped up in store windows, at diners, and at truck stops. Police desperately needed to track down the suspect's truck. The Missouri State Highway Patrol performed a computer search on all registered vehicles. That search left them with about 1,600 trucks to track down and check out. That didn't lead anywhere either. Investigators started to consider the possibility that Angie's kidnapping was related to 2 other disappearances that occurred a few months earlier in nearby counties. On Saturday, January 19, 1991, 42-year-old Trudy Darby was working at the K&D convenience store in Max Creek, Missouri. At around 10 p.m., Trudy was in the process of closing up shop for the night when she noticed suspicious-looking men lingering outside of the store. Trudy didn't know it, but they'd come there with the intention of robbing and kidnapping her. Trudy called home and told her son Waylon to come to the store and help her close up. The phone call ended abruptly. Her son went immediately to the store and arrived just 10 minutes after their phone call. His mom was nowhere to be found. Waylon called the Camden County Sheriff's Department. A search began that night for Trudy Darby. No one knew it yet, but before Trudy's son could get to the store to help his mom, stepbrothers or half-brothers, reporting was, mixed on that. They were either stepbrothers or half-brothers. Marvin Cheney and Jess Rush and one other man had entered the store. They stole about $220 from the cash register. Then they dragged Trudy out of the store at gunpoint and threw her in the trunk of a vehicle. The men took her to a barn located near the convenience store where they repeatedly raped and beat her. She was then shot in the head and put back into the trunk of their car. They drove with Trudy in the trunk to the Little Niangua River where they planned to dump her body. When they opened the trunk, Trudy was still alive. They shot her in the head again and threw her body into the river. A couple of days later, a citizen reported to police that he'd heard a gunshot near the river on the night of Trudy's abduction, and that he'd found what appeared to be blood and hair on the road near the river. Police responded and recovered blood and hair, which was later matched to Trudy by the Missouri State Crime Lab. Authorities also found a .38 caliber shell casing near the river. A helicopter found a nude body 3/4 of a mile downstream from where the evidence had been collected. It was Trudy Darby. The case went unsolved until a few years later when Jess Rush confessed to the crime and implicated his stepbrother/half-brother Marvin Cheney in the crime too. Jess Rush was 15 years old when they kidnapped, raped, and murdered Trudy Darby, and his stepbrother/half-brother Marvin Cheney was 29 or 30 years old. Convicted killer Jess Rush was serving his time as Missouri Department of Corrections inmate number 515013 when he was ordered released by a judge. Jess Rush had been sentenced to life without the possibility of parole for the kidnapping, sexual assault, and murder of Trudy Darby. However, in 2012, the Missouri Supreme Court made a ruling banning mandatory life without parole sentences for juvenile killers, and this law applies retroactively. Therefore, 47-year-old Jess Rush was released from the South Central Correctional Center in Licking, Missouri in September of this year, 2022, into an undisclosed residential halfway house. Now just think about that, guys. A cold-blooded killer that started killing when he was 15 years old, killed Trudy Darby in cold blood and confessed to it. He's just let out, and now he's living in a halfway house in Missouri. No telling where this guy will end up. So these are the kind of people that are out there, and we all just really have to be careful and always be on alert, because these are the kind of people that are among us. So in 2017, his brother, stepbrother, half-brother, Marvin Chaney, was serving his time as Missouri Department of Corrections inmate number 527682 at the Maximum Security Potosi Correctional Center in Mineral Point, Missouri, when he died from apparent natural causes. He was 56 years old. He was also suspected in the disappearance of 18-year-old cashier Diana Braungart. She disappeared in 1987 in Crystal City, Missouri, after her shift at a venture store in the Twin City Plaza. And also another point that I thought of about Jess Rush was, as I said, he confessed, and he wrote some really damning letters from prison to people confessing. And, you know, it's so scary that he's let out now, because the verbiage in these letters was just sick. The way he was talking about Trudy Darby and what they did to her. And he even said that they had killed 2 other women. And actually, let me pull it up real quick here, and I will read you what he said in the So I'm going to read to you some of the filth in the court records that this Jess Rush, the one that was 15, and then his life without the possibility of parole sentence got overturned. And now he's out in the halfway house. I'm going to read to you what he wrote in letters to another prisoner named Edward Thomas. These are like excerpts from the letters. Quote, "I never told you about them other bitches," end quote. Quote, "because if it gets found by accident, it can get us involved in killing them other fucking bitches," end quote. Quote, "Hey dog, I tried to explain a little about them other bitches. I hope you're not mad at me," end quote. Quote, "The cops don't even know about my brother and me killing any other bitches except Max Creek," end quote. Quote, "Them other bitches in my last letter to you were both like that bitch in Max Creek. We all tortured the bitches, then fucked the dog shit out of them," end quote. So that's just a little tidbit from the guy that is now in a halfway house in Missouri. So that's not scary at all. So the other disappearance that authorities suspected might be related to Angie Hammond's kidnapping and Trudy Darby's murder is the disappearance and presumed kidnapping of Cheryl Ann Kenny. On Wednesday, February 27th, 1991, so this is about 1 month after the murder of Trudy Darby and a couple of months before Angie Hammond got abducted from the payphone. So on Wednesday, February 27th, 1991, about an hour and a half drive west from Max Creek, where Trudy Darby was kidnapped and murdered, 30-year-old Cheryl Ann Kenny vanished from the convenience store where she worked. Cheryl Ann Kenny usually worked until midnight at the Quality Convenience Store on Highway 71 in Nevada, Missouri, but it was a slow night, and she apparently decided to close the store early. The store's janitor left a few minutes before Cheryl closed up the store. He later told authorities that there was a male customer in the store when he left, but no cars in the parking lot. But this wasn't particularly unusual because many of the store's customers were walk-in customers. The store was within walking distance of several hotels. Cheryl's time card showed that she clocked out at 10 p.m., set the store alarm at 10:17 p.m., and locked the front doors. Cheryl has never been seen or heard from again. Police found her white car still parked in the store parking lot about 50 feet from the store. 2 witnesses later reported hearing a woman scream right around the time Cheryl would have locked the doors and walked to her car. The witnesses didn't call the police at the time they heard the scream, but reported it several days later when they read about Cheryl being missing in the newspaper. Investigators thought maybe Cheryl voluntarily ran off, but she only had about $6 on her at the time of her disappearance, and it was unlikely that she'd just abandoned her 2 kids, her husband, and her dad, who was sick. The male customer the janitor saw in the store when he left has never been identified, and it's unknown if he had anything to do with Cheryl's disappearance or not. Authorities investigated whether or not Angie Hammond's abduction from the payphone was related to Trudy Darby's murder or Cheryl Ann Kenny's disappearance, but no solid evidence was ever found linking the cases. Then, the very next year, in 1992, 3 more Missouri women just vanished, seemingly into thin air. Suzanne Susie Streeter, Stacy McCall, and Susie's mom, Cheryl Levitt, known as the Springfield Three, went missing from Susie and Cheryl's home in Springfield, Missouri. All of the cases, Angie Hammond, Trudy Darby, Cheryl Ann Kenny, and the Springfield Three, occurred in west central Missouri. So in the fall of 1991, the TV show Unsolved Mysteries went to Clinton, Missouri to film a reenactment of the abduction of Angie Hammond. It aired on TV soon after. There have been several unconfirmed sightings of Angie, including from Canada. The possible sightings were followed up on but led nowhere. A $16,000 reward was offered for leads in Angie's case. Angie's mom never thought Rob had anything to do with Angie's kidnapping. She doesn't blame him either. She feels that he did all that he could do that night. Angie's family remains in contact with Rob. He moved about an hour away from Clinton. He works in construction, and he has a family of his own now. So a possible motive in the case of Angie Hammond was revealed to the public in 2021, last year, 30 years after her abduction from the payphone. This was a lead from very early on in the investigation. It's in the original police case file and has been revisited several times over the years by cops. A confidential drug informant received a letter that was postmarked the day of Angie Hammond's abduction. The note was pieced together from letters and words cut out of a magazine, and it read, quote, "Hello, number redacted. We know who you are, number redacted. People like you deserve what you get. We know where your foxy daughter is at. She will see us soon. Tell redacted she has our deepest sympathy in her further loss. Goodbye," end quote. The word number was abbreviated as no in the letter, followed by the redacted confidential informant ID number of the drug informant. So they were saying in the letter, hello, number blah, 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 like 568 or whatever. And that was the actual confidential informant or CI number of the confidential informant. That was their actual number. So this letter had credibility. They knew the confidential informant's actual CI number that was assigned to them. And so this CI that received the letter, they were helping police break up some significant drug rings that probably disrupted some serious narcotics business. And the informant's wife and daughter lived in Clinton, Missouri at the time, and his daughter's name is Angela, just like our victim that got kidnapped from the payphone. And police said that Angie's abduction could have been a case of mistaken identity because the CI's daughter and Angie Hammond share quote-unquote striking similarities. So maybe the real intended target of the abduction was the CI's daughter.
Tonight, police are revealing a new theory in the case. Maybe the wrong woman was kidnapped.
Police now have a new theory. The wrong Angela was abducted. Turns out there was an informant in another case who was being threatened.
it was a case of mistaken identity. Pretty incredible.
Did your Angela look like the other Angela?
There were striking similarities. Very much so.
Police have released this old nasty letter sent to the informant decades ago, warning him, people like you deserve what you get. We know where your foxy daughter is at. She will see us soon.
Police could never figure out how to connect the chilling letter to the Ford truck with Angie in it that Rob Schaefer tried to chase down. In early 2021, the Clinton Police Department precinct received a voicemail left by an anonymous caller with details contained in the mysterious letter. Police want to talk to that person. This was just last year in 2021. Somebody called with details that are in that letter, called and left a voicemail on the Clinton Police Precinct phone. So police want to talk to that person. Of course, they said the person can remain anonymous, and they hope that they can talk to that person and break this case wide open. Anyone with any information on this case is urged to contact the Clinton Police Department at 660-885-2679. Again, that's the Clinton Police Department at 660-885-2679.
An anonymous tip was left on voicemail just a few months ago.
Boy, we would sure like to talk to that person. We need to know what happened. We have to figure something out.
If you have any information, Clinton police ask that you call them. Reporting in Clinton, Missouri, Angie Racono, KCTV5 News.
At the time of her disappearance, Angie Hammond was 20 years old. She would be 51 years old today. She was around 5 feet tall and weighed about 130 to 140 pounds. She is a white female with light brown eyes and brown hair. She has a scar on her upper lip. Her teeth were in excellent condition. She was wearing a white shirt with black spots, black slacks, and tennis shoes. She was 4 months pregnant when she was kidnapped. Cheryl Ann Kenny was 30 years old when she vanished. She would now be 62 years old. She's between 5'6" and 5'7", and at the time of her disappearance, she weighed about 117 pounds. She's a white female with light brown hair, and she had it bleached blonde when she disappeared. She has a unique tooth pattern. And what they mean by this, I think, from the pictures that I saw of her where she was smiling, it looked like she had like gaps in between each of her teeth. And I'm sure that they put that in there because, you know, if remains are found, then, you know, all of that, the whoever finds the remains, that jurisdiction will follow up with, you know, all of this information and try to get her identified. So I think authorities presume that both of these women are now dead. But so anyway, Cheryl Ann Kenny has mole removal scars on her chest and upper left arm, and a scar on her wrist. She wore glasses with tan frames. On her last night at work, she was wearing a blue pullover sweatshirt, a blue denim jacket, blue jeans, and white LA Gear tennis shoes. So thank you so much, guys, for listening to this episode of Tell Me a True Crime Story. Please subscribe to the podcast and tell your friends and family members about it. Share the podcast or share an episode that you loved. Follow the podcast on social media. Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok are at Tell Me a True Crime Story, and Twitter is at Tell Me a TCS Pod. And also, if you could please write a review for the podcast and give it 5 stars, that would help so much to grow our podcast family. Also, please check out my other podcast, All Available Units Respond. That podcast covers interesting stories in detail of disasters and catastrophes like structural collapses, massive fires, train derailments, and plane accidents. If you like true crime, I think you will enjoy the stories on that podcast too. And if you have people in your life that are firefighters, police officers, first responders, or retired from any of those professions, tell them about the podcast because I believe that they would like the stories on there. Again, it's called All Available Units Respond, and so far there are 4 episodes on there. Thank you so much again for being here, and you know that I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Tune in next week for episode 13 when I'll tell you another true crime story. Big hugs to all of you. Bye-bye.